What's a fact you thought was true for years but later found out was false? When I was 7, I touched a bare electric line. Received a shock. Went crying to my mom. She was preparing dinner at the time. Making a salad. She gave me some lettuce. Said it would make a shock go away. I didn't eat lettuce. But it was worth making the pain go away. The pain subsided. As it would have regardless. So, I believed her about the lettuce. Years later, Mom overheard me telling a friend about lettuce being a cure for electric shocks. And confessed that she'd made it up. Fast thinking from Mom. Too bad she didn't happen to be making cookies at the time. I'm South American and it's common knowledge there that American movies need to show the flag at least once to get tax cuts. I've known this as a fact for maybe 15 years, and after living in America for 5 I brought it up in a conversation. And all the Americans in the room had no idea what I was talking about. Googled and found out it's just a South American myth. Edited for clarity. If you don't wait for 1 hour after eating to swim, you will get such incredibly debilitating cramps that you will lose all motor function and sink and drown. Edit. I also remember as a child having an empty inbox lol. Holy crap. This hit a nerve, eh? I thought nuns weren't allowed to drive. This is a conversation between my friend and his GF in college. GF, how do they know where to put gas stations? Friend, I assume they do market research to see how much need there is for another gas station in the area. GF, no. I mean, how do they know there will be gas on the corner where they build the station? Friend, they truck in the gasoline with tankers. GF, oh. I once worked at a gas station and had a woman yell at me because the newest gas we had was from 1993. When I was younger I had a pet bird and she flew away one day when I was cleaning her cage. Her name was Kathy. Lol. I was obviously devastated because she was my first pet and my best friend. So my dad said he was going to go out and find Kathy for me. 2 hours later he comes home with a yellow budgie saying he found her in a tree down the block and caught her. I was so thankful and couldn't believe he got her back for me. I literally only realized a couple years ago that there's no way he could have caught her. And when I asked, he confirmed that he just went to the pet shop and bought me a new yellow budgie. I lived with the belief that she was Kathy for 16 years. I was chilling one night with my now ex-girlfriend. We were watching a nature show. Some shit about bears. I noticed her start to laugh and she looked a little shocked and confused. I asked her what was up and she said, "What the hell are they?" "What the hell are what?" I asked. Those teddy bear things ? To my absolute astonishment and sheer disbelief. It transpired that she genuinely had no idea that real life, actual bears existed. She thought that teddy bears were some sort of mythical creature created purely for the purpose of being a stuffed, cuddly toy. Like unicorns. She was 17. Edit. Till a ducking shit ton of people never knew narwhals existed. My one earlobe is a little smaller than the other. My dad told me he bit it off accidentally when I was a baby. And I believed it for about 15 years. My growth slowed pretty early on. And I was obviously upset about that. My mom noticed. And told me that you'd grow a little bit with each hiccup. Probably to give me hope. From that day, whenever I would start hiccuping I would try to do everything in my power to keep hiccuping. Just so I could grow a little taller. I believed that until I was 15. That the Arctic was named because there are polar bears there, from the Greek word for bear, Arctus. And that the Antarctic was named because there are no polar bears there. Just found this out 5 seconds ago. Your eyeballs grow. I thought your eyeballs stayed the same size your entire life and that's why babies appear to have such large eyes in proportion to the rest of their body. You know when you fidget bounce your leg when you're anxious or bored? My mom always told me that was called ponting. For years I told people it was called ponting. And was always surprised no one else ever called it that, until I googled it one day and found out the word doesn't exist. My mom either made it up or was using a fake term herself. I think it's a good word, though. In the early 2000s my dad told me Bobby Flay, who I loved, died. I believed it until I saw him on TV maybe 3-4 years ago. I called my dad and told him. I couldn't believe it. I thought he must have faked his death. Turns out my dad lied to me because apparently he wanted to watch something other than Bobby Flay on TV that day. I believed that thunder was the sound of clouds hitting each other. My roommates told me otherwise just a few days before college graduation when there was some thunder on a cloudless day. Mom swears she doesn't know where I got that idea. When me and my sister were kids, she refused to eat cabbage. So one meal time, our nana told her the cabbage wasn't cabbage. It was a special vegetable called sponduli that had been imported from South Africa. She ate this magical veg and loved it. And the name stuck as a result. Fast forward 10 years. 14-year-old sister is told at the dinner table that sponduli is really just cabbage and she bursts into tears, saying I've told all my friends about it for years. Edit, typos. That a penny could heal someone if dropped off the Empire State Building. One of my favorite busted myths. My favorite part from that episode is when he pointed out that people think throwing a penny off the roof would heal someone. But they keep doing it. That different sections of our tongue detect different tastes. I know the tip of the tongue tastes forgotten words. Marilyn Manson got his rib removed so he could suck his own big dick. Manson was actually asked about this in an interview. His response? If I had that done, do you think I would be here giving this interview when I could be at home blowing myself? I thought toilets really did spin the other way when you cross the equator. If your toilet is spinning, you might need to call a plumber or an exorcist. Bats are not blind. They have eyes and can see. Also they have an excellent night vision. Wow. Let me tell you. It broke my heart to find out elephants don't actually think we're cute. That Einstein failed math and I'm sure there are a ton of people out there that still believe that. What's funny is that he was shown a clipping from Ripley's Believe It or Not, which is likely the origin of this myth. He responded, I never failed in mathematics. Before I was 15 I had mastered differential and integral calculus. Source: Albert Einstein hated being a role model for people to push their kids into math. He said, if you judge a fish for its ability to climb a tree, it will spend its entire life believing that it is stupid. In fact, Einstein said that I love math, but hate mathematicians and sometimes lamented that he wasn't better at music instead. He would play the piano or violin when he felt burned out on physics and needed a break from it. But he figured he would have had a less stressful life if he was good enough to become a professional musician or composer instead. My dad used to say Jenna Fisher, Pam from The Office, was Carrie Fisher's daughter, Princess Leia from Star Wars, so I thought it was true and shared that info with a few friends. Stupid me didn't think to look it up. And when I finally did, I told my dad the truth. Of course he doesn't remember ever telling me this. My mom told me that the paws of dogs never grow and they are born with the size they'll have. A few years later, after I embarrassed myself with that fact in front of my friends a few times, I asked her again and apparently I got it wrong. The paws are an indicator for the size the dog will reach later, but obviously they do grow. Imagine how ridiculous it would look. A pup with huge paws. Not me. But I met multiple people from France who didn't believe in yellow school buses. Apparently, everybody in France believe they only exist in American movies, not in real life. I had a friend from the UK visit me in California once, and it was her first trip to the US. She got super excited when we drove by a school bus and made me pull over so she could take a picture to show all her friends back home. I had no idea until that moment that the yellow school bus was iconic Americana for foreigners. That the Great Wall of China is the only man-made object visible from space. I was always perturbed by this in class growing up. Like, what? What about all those lights? And the wall is like what? 30 foot wide at most? How can that be seen but not a city block? That driving with the overhead light in your car on is illegal. My parents always referred to a really good parking spot as a glory hole. It was not until I started college and exclaimed to my friends that I had found the perfect glory hole in the Chipotle parking lot that I realized that my parents' usage of the term was very, very wrong. Not so much a fact. But until a year ago I thought cow tipping was a real activity. Turns out cows sleep laying down and it would take at least 4 people to actually tip, assuming you could sneak up on them. That's understandable though. Literally decades of TV and film would tell you that's a real thing. That chewing gum took 7 years to digest. My friends and I convinced my now wife that Bob Ross filmed his painting shows from prison, where he had a life sentence for killing his DI in the army barehanded, to the point where she was spreading it to others as fact. She was so pissed when we finally told her that cracking your knuckles will give you arthritis. Earth's mantle is molten. I heard this from teachers all the way up through high school. I get into college, attend my first geology course, and the professor completely obliterates that fact. My dad told me that the stripes on the sides of the road, the ones that make a sound when you ride on them, exist so that the blind people can drive without going off the road. We were kids and believed it for some time. That smoke detectors contact the fire department. If I recall, you can get some that do. Just like you can get door and window alarms that contact the police. Well, a company that calls you, and then the police. That Morgan Freeman married his adopted daughter. I found out much later that it was Woody Allen. So if he came up in conversation I'd mention it, and many times nobody in the conversation googled it. Sorry Morgan for the years of misguided slander. Eating carrots helps you have better vision at night. If my history was correct, this actually was propagated by British intelligence during World War II. During the terror bombing of London. To hide the fact that British pilots had radar, which was new at the time, and were shooting down German planes at a blistering rate. British intelligence told the British population, and in extension the rest of the world, that their pilots were eating more carrots. This was to hide from the Germans the fact that they had radar, but was also good for Britain's economy since they had a stockpile of carrots that were in high demand after this announcement. Conveniently, carrots are also high in vitamin A, which ironically are good for the health of your eyes, but still not for your vision. If you pee in a pool it would show red because they put a special chemical in it. Even if it existed, no pool would use it because it's pretty expensive to drain and fill a pool, and they're not going to do that every time someone pees in the pool. I believed when my grandma told me I was the most handsome looking boy in the world. OP asked for things that turned out to be false. My ex-wife, who was born in Alaska, thought it was an island out in the Pacific past Hawaii. I told her I wanted to drive to Alaska to see all the terrain on my way out there. She looked at me like I sprouted wings from my ass and confidently informed me that cars don't drive on water. I informed her that I was well aware of this fact and I wasn't sure what she was implying. This is when she told me that Alaska was island west of Hawaii. Just like on the maps, I lost my ducking mind and began laughing like an asshole when I realized she had no idea Alaska was attached to Canada. She didn't believe me until I pulled up Google Earth. She was 22 when she learned where Alaska actually was. That humans only use 10% of our brains. And if we could unlock the rest, we'd have godlike superpowers. We only use 33% of traffic lights. That men have one less rib than women. That if you sleep with wet hair you'll catch a cold. That if a person was sentenced to prison for 150 years their body stayed in the cell even after death until the time was served.